So welcome to the October live event of our DEI Leader Network. My name is Rachel Gomez-Peterson. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm wearing a white and blue striped shirt. I have shoulder-length brown hair, olive complexion, and I wear glasses. Today, we are so fortunate to have two experts in supplier diversity with us who will walk us through the important role supplier diversity programs play as part of an organization's DEI strategy. But before we begin, a few administrative notes. Because of the number of people, because we have people, we've muted everybody, but we do welcome questions and comments at any time during the presentation. My colleagues, Holly and Wittenberg and Denise Rosemond, will be monitoring the chat. And so we've also saved time at the end for discussion for questions. So since we have some new participants on this month's webinar, I wanted to introduce you quickly to DiversityWorks. We are a women-owned company that evaluates organizations' DEI performance using a rigorous, data-driven approach. We believe that effective DEI strategies are grounded in business drivers and that there are many ways organizations can demonstrate their commitment to DEI. DiversityWorks created the DEI Leader Network to provide a platform for the DEI professional. We have found, and I'm sure you've experienced it as well, that the role of being a DEI professional can be lonely, and a lonely one, and if not, just a department of one in many organizations. So DEI leaders often shoulder an enormous amount of responsibility on a complex topic all on their own. Next slide. So what is the DEI Leader Network? It's the DLN, which is what we call it, is a LinkedIn group, is intended to give informal and formal DEI leaders a community to lean on and learn from. As part of the DLN, we hold monthly live events featuring subject matter experts for those who are assigned the responsibility for DEI. In their organization. Please invite others in your network to join us every third Thursday of the month. At DiversityWorks, we believe that a focus on diversity, equity, inclusion is the right thing to do, the smart thing to do, and more relevant than ever in the world that is today. DiversityWorks created a diagnostic framework that we use with clients to help organizations strategically embed DEI into their operations and assess the effectiveness of their DEI initiatives. We believe that organizations can become more productive, more innovative, and more resilient by adopting a strategic approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So today's topic of supplier diversity really fits in amazingly to every domain and every dimension of the DiversityWorks diagnostic framework. If we look here today at strategy, internal and external, there isn't a line that isn't highlighted in blue that supplier diversity doesn't touch. It's a great way to have some easy and quick wins in DEI and to help transform an organization and begin the process of a DEI strategy. Whoops. All right. So supplier diversity efforts can range from really simple to really complex. For example, asking suppliers for their DEI policy statement, to allocating a percentage of spend to minority-owned or women-owned businesses. Another thing that supplier diversity is great with is to make progress on DEI while you work on other areas that require more time and are more complex. So looking at the image here, if we look at supply chain, financial, reputational, fraud, compliance, geopolitical, and innovation, they're all interconnected. Diversifying suppliers reduces dependency on a single source, minimizing the impact of delays or defaults. Engaging with minority or women-owned businesses may provide a more competitive pricing option for an organization, thus reducing financial strain. A well-implemented diversity strategy can enhance brand image and stakeholder relations. A diverse supplier base makes it more challenging for fraudulent activities to go unnoticed, as it encourages increased oversight and more stringent verification processes. Staying aligned with federal and industry-specific diversity standards can protect against any legal repercussions that an organization may face. A diverse supplier base can minimize the effects of political instability or tariffs that might affect one region but not another. Diverse suppliers can bring new perspectives and innovative solutions, reducing the risk of stagnation. And I think we saw during the pandemic how important having a diverse supplier base is to the livelihood and success of businesses. So today we have two amazing women with us to speak on supplier diversity. Dr. Leilani Evans is the managing partner of National Management Solutions. She specializes in business strategies and DEI as related to business growth and their competitive advantage. As a strategic collaborator and thinker, she is passionate about unlocking business values through process optimization. Dr. Evans creates the structure and the operational guidance necessary for startup companies to achieve success. She's an effective communicator, often serving as the operational leadership on tasks related to client initiatives and corporate growth. Additionally, she's adept at understanding complex business landscapes, analyzing the challenges they face, and developing lasting solutions to reduce risk, drive operational excellence, and ultimately positively impact the bottom line. Dr. Evans thrives on implementing innovative DEI processes for an inclusive and efficient working environment. And many of you know Elizabeth Kerwin. She's the managing partner at Diversity Works. She's a veteran communications and public affairs strategist who's helped corporations, nonprofits, government organizations, trade associations, you name it, develop messaging that improves their performance, their reputation, and their impact. She pairs a data-driven approach to DEI performance analysis with communications objectives that strengthen internal culture and external relationships. So we're really fortunate to have both Dr. Leilani Evans and Elizabeth Kerwin here with us today to talk about an important topic. So we're really going to turn this into a conversation between Leilani and Elizabeth. And we would love for audience participation. So if I will check the chat from time to time again and interject, but we do have some prepared questions. The first is to define supplier diversity. So Dr. Evans, I'll turn this over to you to start us off.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and hello to everyone. I am excited to be here to share my insight on supplier diversity. I know the question was asked early on is, what is supplier diversity to you? And we can talk about that a little later because I see some things in the chat that actually defines what concept of supplier diversity one has. But supplier diversity is a strategic variation of including marginalized groups, or normally the traditional excluded groups, which are usually women-based, LGBTQs, veteran-owned, anything that is not considered in the norm of business as it was or as we know it to be. There are benefits to doing all of this. To one, when Rachel spoke about increasing bottom lines and competitive advantage, what it does for a company as a supplier, it speaks to their customer base. When you have a face that looks like you, people tend to buy more from you. They tend to patronize you more by becoming a customer. So supplier diversity is crucial in business to gain a market advantage, a competitive advantage against the norm of competition in the industry.
Thank you for that. So I want to start with sort of the question, what is the problem that supplier diversity is trying to solve, but either is or probably more likely, what are the problems?
Well, I can start us off, and then Dr. Evans, if you Yeah, thanks. So I think that one of the things that I really see as the value of a supplier diversity strategy and program is building resilience into organizations. So it really helps you be very intentional about those relationships that you're forming, and it creates some redundancies that will help you survive any hiccups in your supply chain. And one of the things that I really love about supplier diversity is that it is a low bar of entry. I think it's an easy thing to get going. It obviously can be very complex and become a much bigger thing, but when organizations are struggling to figure out where to start with their DEI practice, I think that a focus on supplier diversity is a place where you can almost start immediately and start seeing some impact right away as well. A lot of the other things that we do around DEI, such as setting goals to diversify the workforce or establishing partnerships with organizations, take longer and are harder to implement. But supplier diversity is really an area where you can get started right away and start seeing an impact right away.
Yeah, I want to echo behind Elizabeth. I think the operative word that she chose was intentional. It is an intentional process. It's not a process that you just speak on and saying, I want to create a diversity platform in supplies or a supplier diversity, or I want to create a structure that gives us diversity. Because the average company, in my findings, as I've been traversing this for a while, is that when you talk about diversity, it is only aesthetics. Diversity goes beyond all of that. And I know I've had this conversation with Rachel recently, where diversity is a cultural enrichment, it is a race enrichment, it is a belief and ideology, it is a compilation of a lot of moving parts to become an actual diversified entity. So I just wanted to state that.
So then how do supplier diversity programs actually solve these problems? And, if we think about cultural differences or the supply chain, thinking about during the pandemic and the fact that we couldn't get half of our goods during that time, how does having a diverse supplier network and program help to solve problems?
I think what it does, by expanding your market, you have more tentacles out that can actually pull in resources that you need. And those tentacles may be your mom and pop shops that actually has the ability to pull in the supplies. And I'm going to give an example. There's a company called Melaleuca, and I'm not sure if anybody knows what that is, but during the COVID, there were supplies that you couldn't get. You couldn't get disinfect. You couldn't get Lysol spray or bleach or alcohol, any of that stuff. But that's the one company that stayed in business because they are marketed here, but they are marketed with a diverse supplier group. And they were able to continue, for people who were in their membership program, supply them with whatever they needed, from toothpaste to body wash to whatever we were falling short on in the economy during the COVID time. And I think for supplier diversity, it has to think out of the box. It can't just be a containment of, here's where we stand. We need to identify who our market is, what our market is, who are our buyers in the market. And we have to address those buyers with products that they want to purchase that's going to speak to them.
Elizabeth, do you want to add?
Yeah, I think that the connecting with the with those audiences is really important, but I think that also it's about creating redundancies and building resilience into that supply chain. So supplier diversity really asks you to cast a broader net, right, to find more organizations, and you might find some of these organizations that help you live your values as a business by providing your support to them, that are in a better position to supply you in times of crisis, such as a pandemic. So I think that it's really about challenging those established norms that you have, and really forcing yourself to be more creative about finding these solutions. I think that one of the objectives with DEI practices overall is really to challenge that groupthink and those norms that take hold, and really, get yourself to be in a more innovative frame of mind. So you're trying to, kind of disrupt those habits that we form in the workplace, and supplier diversity is a good way to really kind of disrupt business as usual and really think about new ways to solve problems and get things done. So I think that there's a direct link there with just innovative thinking in general, but also building those redundancies and resilience.
I'm wondering if either of you could speak to how, supplier diversity programs and really committing to it can challenge, in a positive way, the networks that we use, and maybe the better way to say it reframing it is expand our networks. I feel that, organizations tend to rely on who you know and how you know them through past experiences and past interactions. But as diversifying your supplier chain and creating a program with intentionality can really challenge that in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, affinity bias is real, right? Like if you look at your professional network, it's largely going to be made up of people who look a lot like you and have similar types of backgrounds, and we tend to gravitate towards people who remind us of ourselves, right? So it's just it's just the way that we're programmed. It's something that we always have to have it in mind when we're when we're making decisions. But so I think that supplier diversity policy and program can really help you kind of disrupt that affinity bias and not make go outside of your network, go outside of your comfort zone even to find new folks who might be in better position to get you what you need, but also help you support businesses that are important to you, such as small businesses, women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, etc. Wherever you're trying to have that impact and focus. So I think that it really does help kind of challenge those inherent biases that we have that can leave us a little bit blind to good opportunities.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Elizabeth. Again, I think it's intentional. It's intentional to identify and invite within the communities itself their businesses into the fold. They normally would not have that opportunity because they're not the largest scale business. So I think it's a marketing where you have to go out and you have to market to them to embrace them and bring them into the fold.
So I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about the benefits. We've already started of creating a supplier diversity program through the lens of the diagnostic, and thinking about it just through a strategic imperative. What is the benefit of a supplier diversity program? And then we'll move on to internal employees, culture, and then external with consumers. We were talking before everyone signed on about the generation coming up is actually very attuned to where and who they buy from, and how a supplier diversity program can help illustrate values, a company's values. And then what are the business drivers behind a supplier diversity program? So let's start with strategy, looking at it from a strategic point of view.
Yeah, so when I think about that, I think about what the vision and the values of the organization are, and how they've made that connection between their DEI vision and values and the business case for the organization. And I think that supplier diversity is a really great way to demonstrate your commitment to that vision and values. If your overall DEI business case is that we need more women in this organization to help us reduce financial risk and to be a more attractive place for women to work, to attract talent and retain talent, then supporting women-owned businesses through your supplier diversity policy and program is a great way to demonstrate that commitment and really reinforce it. It also gives you a good story to tell to potential employees, to partners, to your community, whoever your important stakeholders are, that you've not only set these goals and expressed these values, but you're living them by supporting businesses that reflect that vision and values.
Leilani?
Yes, no, I totally agree. It has to be aligned with the vision and the values of the company itself, who's creating that diversity program. What do they want to achieve, and who, again, is their market? What is their market, and how do they actually embrace that into the fold so that they can elevate into a more competitive state? I think Elizabeth hit that one on the nail. Yes.
Leilani, when we were prepping for today, we talked a lot about employees and their response to supplier diversity, and how having a supplier diversity program where the suppliers look like the employees was really critical. I wonder if you could speak more about that, because I don't think people think supplier diversity, it can change the culture of your organization or have an impact on your employee benefits and well-being.
Yeah. People that look like us, and when I mean us, I'm inclusive of everyone that's on this call, tend to want to buy from people like the big corporations. We buy from the big corporations. We go to the grocery stores, we go to the hair supply stores, we go to retail stores, and we buy. But when you're looking at supplier diversity and you're looking at what that means and who you're bringing into the fold, it speaks volumes when you're buying from someone that looks like you, if that makes any sense. When someone looks like you, what it's saying to the people, to the consumer, is this company cares about me, or this supplier cares about me because they're catering to what it is I want, or what it is I need, or what it is I desire. And so it is important that we have a diverse face in the market for supplier diversity to attract a larger scale of consumer base. Without that, you're just an ordinary company. You're just a subpar company that is making whatever marginal profits they want to make. But when you increase your diversity plan and you bring in the fold to look like everyone, you now have increased your competitive advantage, and your tentacles go a lot further than just your backyard.
And what are some of the business drivers that really help supplier diversity programs to succeed?
I think in this particular case, it is about consumer needs as a business driver. It's a consumer needs. You have to understand your market, what they need, what is it that you can supply to them, and how do you make it economically sound for them to actually purchase whatever it is that they want. You've got to show the face of the company to be like you. You've got to show the face of the company that we're community based, that we're concerned about that community that we're also servicing, because that also speaks volumes to the customer.
Elizabeth, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that I think that from just a bottom line perspective, cost is something that you can get a benefit out of a supplier diversity program. Like you might be as you start to look for different suppliers, you might find better prices for things. I think that a diverse set of suppliers also helps you identify new markets. Leilani's been talking about that customer, and having more diverse suppliers in your network might open up opportunities for new markets and new customers that you hadn't considered before, or that perhaps hadn't been available to you because you didn't have those connections. So I think that it really comes down to a bottom line discussion. I think that there's a lot of opportunities there to improve costs and drive value through supplier diversity.
One of the areas that I feel supplier diversity can have the biggest impact is on sort of addressing the wealth gap in this country, especially if we just focus on the United States and not using a global supply chain, although that's part of it as well. And can either of you speak to how, a company can incorporate supplier diversity and make money, and also, help with the growing wealth gap of organizations and companies in the US?
You're saying that, and the first thing that comes to mind to me is, I'm going to use a name, Walmart. It comes to mind for supplier diversity. When Sam Walton created Walmart, it was the intent to allow people to have affordable products to be able to make their dollars work for them. And that was his way of trying to bridge that wealth gap so that people can still live freely. And in today's economic growth, even Walmart has gotten expensive in comparison to all. And so when I look at Walmart and I look at Amazon and I look at these other companies, there's not a whole lot bridging going on there because I'm not even actually sure what's causing that or driving that. But I think that if you are basing your product or your program into a community, you have to really sit down financially and do the numbers of how do you service this community or this specific base to allow them to buy the product and still make a reasonable profit. Because I think that's key, because big corporations are making their money no matter what. So if you're doing supplier diversity and you're bringing in smaller companies, you're bringing in vet-owned companies, the smaller companies are usually in community-based areas, they're still struggling to make the profit level at the same rate that a bigger company is, but they're supplying products and services to their community-based people that is keeping them in business. So it's a fine line between how to make that more productive and revenue generating and satisfying your customer. And I don't actually have the answer for that right now.
Yeah, and I think I think that wealth gap is an important thing for organizations that have the capacity to really work on and address. So we know that Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses have less access to capital, are not able to compete at the same level as those corporations that Leilani mentioned. And by supporting them, you're really giving them an opportunity that otherwise doesn't exist. So I think it's really important to think about who in your community needs to be lifted up and who hasn't had those opportunities. And so the Supplier Diversity Program can really help you make that community impact while also delivering a business need, which is your whatever it is that you're buying, whether it's goods or services.
Yeah.
In your experience, Leilani, are there do companies or departments within companies like the CSR department partner with the supplier diversity or the supply chain department? Is there synergy there, or are they sort of opposed to one another?
So, not to cut you off, in my experience, and I know I spoke to you about this briefly a couple of days ago, Rachel. In my experience, there is a misnomer about what diversity is, first and foremost. And so even in the companies for supplier diversity, there is a mismark on what that means. And it's again, as I said earlier, it's beyond aesthetics. It's about beyond what we see in front of us. It really has to do with your base. It really has to do with who are you servicing. And I'm going to give you an example. AWS, which is Amazon's works, Salesforce, and so forth. All of that with Amazon it's great. It's perfect, right? When we need stuff, we go online, we order from Amazon. I'm indicative of that. I am guilty. You order from Amazon, but of lately, when I go on, I look at Amazon and I'm looking at the prices and I'm like, wait a minute, I just saw this somewhere else, because now you're paying for convenience. Amazon doesn't have to be that diverse in anything. All they had to do was offer convenience, right? And so they say they have a diversity program, which they have. How comprehensive is it? It isn't. But what they do is they reach out to the masses. They have tentacles all around the world, and they allow you to get products at what you think is reasonable at a faster rate, but you're paying more. So you have to kind of weigh out what that means to your pocket. Is it convenience? Is it worth the $4 or $5 more as opposed to going to the local store near you to go get it? I think that supplier diversity is still missing the mark on what that really means. And I don't think corporations, short of us having the conversation about REI and Google, I don't think corporations at large has really honed in on what that means.
So I'm wondering, what are some small ways that a company can start examining or participating in or creating their own supplier diversity program? Some small basic ways that people who are on this call today can go back to their organization and say, let's start doing this. Let's take a look at this. And then sort of move through like small, middle of the road, and then really large scale. Which large scale is for another webinar.
And Rachel, I'm sure you can speak to this, but I think doing data analytics, I think, is the first, which is a little bit more complex than anything. But I think data analytics to really scrub in where their revenue is coming from, what base is their revenue coming from, what's that demographic looks like, what's that geographical location looks like. I think that's the first thing that they need to do is identify that.
Yeah, and I think, an easy first step, and one of the things that we often recommend is that you just start asking the question of your suppliers, do you have a DEI policy? Have you set goals? And that it doesn't mean that you only work with organizations that have that policy or have set that goal. That could be a second step or even a third step, but just asking that correct question and creating that demand is really, really critical and can have a huge impact. That is the REI model, right? They have said that all of their suppliers need to have a DEI policy and have set some goals, and so they've taken a step further that it is actually a requirement as opposed to just a question that they ask. But that's really a first step, and I think it signals it sends important signals to the marketplace. It says this is a value that you hold as an organization, as a purchaser, and that it's important to you, and that you're potentially making decisions based on having a commitment. I mean, at a next step, and this is particularly applicable to services that organizations purchase, such as legal counsel, public relations counsel, financial services counsel, is to ask for diverse teams to be servicing you as a client. And again, that it sends a signal to that organization that this is important, that they should be thinking about it as well if they haven't been already. And it's another way that you can have an impact with your spend. So if you are you want your legal team to have women and people of color, then that's creating opportunities for those folks within that firm, and showing that it's important to you that you're supporting folks who have not traditionally been given a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and another thing, just to echo behind that, someone like the REI model, they're reaching out and they're bringing in other smaller suppliers and asking about their diversity. What does their diversity program look like, or what does their diversity policy look like? You can also, companies like that can also create a mentorship to their smaller suppliers to mentor them towards that diverse platform that is what is so much needed right now. And I think that's critical that these larger companies really start mentoring the smaller or the marginalized or non-traditional groups that wants to be revenue generated business, like the mom and pops, a service disabled owned, women owned, LGBTQ owned. I think that's important. I think that creates an inclusive embracement, if you will, where typically they're not getting mentorship anywhere. And I think that's just another key.
And can you speak to a little bit about, the ways in which moving beyond just the initial asking for DEI programs or an ESG, or looking at the corporate social responsibility outlines on an organization, what are some mid-scale initiatives that an organization can look to in order to create their supplier diversity programs.
Well,
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
okay, I think one of the things that comes to mind is really setting goals and saying that, you know, we want a percentage of our spend going to small businesses, or we want a percentage of our spend going to women-owned businesses, and then really, you know, measuring it and holding yourself accountable to reaching those goals. I think that you have to know where you're going and be very clear about what success looks like in your program. And you know, it's that one takes more work for sure than just, you know, asking a question, but it's, you know, if it's important to you and it's important to your community, then it's worth doing.
Yeah. I think goals are definitely the operative platform here, but in doing those goals, you have to also understand when you're talking about percentages, what percentages of your business are you willing to go to allocate towards that? Because that becomes a whole another complexity of operation, which is worthwhile if you wanted to expand. But I think those goals are measurable goals. Those goals are attainable in financials. For the parent company, if you will, or the main company, you just have to dissect that and come up with what is going to consider to be an elevation of bringing those individuals in to become part of your network in a diverse program, because that's basically what you're doing when you're talking about bringing in supplier diversity, increasing that in your tentacles. You are creating a different type of network, and it's a diverse network. And how are you going to help promote that? And so all of those become part of those goals that you list when you are formulating this plan.
I want to end with thinking about some ways in which people can reach out to different organizations and learn about how to diversify their supply chain or their supply programs. You know, what organizations, I'm thinking of the Chamber of Commerce here in Atlanta. I know that the mayor has a DEI equity initiative that he's put into place here in Atlanta. So there's more talk about diversity, equity, inclusion going on. I mean, it's always sort of a through line in Atlanta, given Atlanta's history, but we have someone in a position of power who's really kind of talking about supplier diversity, which is really interesting, and promoting it, that we should be looking at it and looking at the Chamber of Commerce as a resource. But what other resources exist out there for small companies or mid-sized companies or large companies to understand where they can even begin, rather than relying on their networks?
Yeah, I think here in the DC metropolitan area, there are several different entities that you can reach out to. In Maryland, you can look at the MDOT, which is the Maryland Department of Transportations, and to see what they have for their supplier diversity, because they do have an entity for that. The same in DC under the mayor's program, whether it's a hub zone or services able program. I think the Department of Commerce across the board is great for that. I'm trying to think of some other entities offhand that a smaller company could, or a larger company could go to get a list of individuals or companies so that they can tap in to start doing research on them to see if they are one that they want to bring into their fold. So usually under the what is the name of it? It escapes me right now. For Department of Labor, for small businesses, the Business Bureau itself, I think are areas that you can actually go and get some information from.
Yeah, I think that the Small Business Administration is a great resource. So they're the ones who are certifying women-owned small businesses and other types of small business. I'm just familiar with that one because we're in the process of getting our designation. And so there's also some independent ones. There's the Women's Owned Business Enterprise. I can't remember the acronym right now, but there are organizations that will have lists of companies that have been certified and will indicate what market they're in. So, but I find the SBA is a great resource on a lot of different levels. We actually have a small business advisor through the University of Nevada, Reno, which is where I'm headquartered, and he's been a fantastic resource for us. And I think that he would be a great place to start for thinking about supplier diversity. So I would say if you have an advisor like that, it would be a great place to start. But there are definitely lists out there of organizations that meet these criteria that that you can consult.
And SBA also just took over recertification for service-disabled owned businesses. So where they normally would have gone through VA to get their recertification as a veteran-owned business or service-disabled owned business, it's all done through the SBA now. The good part about SBA is that when you do attach yourself to them, like Elizabeth said, she has her own advisor. They give you the advisor. It doesn't cost you anything. It's their job to help promote your success. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But those lists are available through SBA and several other agencies as well.
And what might be the benefit or maybe even the cost of working with someone who isn't formally on that list? To go through a certification process can be lengthy, time consuming, and also costly in terms of, even if it's a free process, you still have the cost of your employee helping to do all the paperwork and follow up with a business advisor. So do you recommend only looking at those organizations that are on the formal list, or can organizations look outside of that list to people in their neighborhoods or in their community or in their cities?
I think within your state itself and in your county yourself, there is a business listing that you can acquire and go through there. I don't think SBA is your only one-stop shop. And first of all, let me just back up, because I think you were talking about getting certified. Were you talking about getting certified as a small-owned business?
Right, or a women-owned business, or right, minority-owned business, or veteran-owned business.
So right now, there are some issues going on with the 8A program, which is for a small-owned business that gives you an edge up for contracts, where they're not taking any new ones right now. There's a court case happening. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. But that does not stop you from becoming a woman-owned certified business. That you could self-certified. In Virginia, they have WOSB, where it's a SWAM, which is women-owned business for certification that doesn't cost. So in each state, they have their own entity that you can go and get support from and get a list of businesses. In each county, they have that as well, because there's a county certification, there's a state certification, and they're free. And you can get a list and get the database right there online and go and scrub through and make connections with other small companies or larger companies that are registered in those states.
I think that it does take time. It's not a lack of burden process to go ahead and get certified. So I think that self-certification is should be enough to get started with an organization. If just ask them to confirm that they are owned by who they say they are, and that is enough. Because it is a lengthy process and it's bureaucratic, and it's not the easiest lift.
Right. So we have a question in the chat. Affinity bias is one of the biggest barriers to supplier diversity. How have the presenters worked to dismantle or work around affinity bias? And also, what departments within organizations are responsible for identifying, tracking, and measuring diverse suppliers? Thank you, MJ, for your question.
Yes. So let me just speak to that second part, if I can, that, I think it's everybody's responsibility within the organization to support the supplier diversity policy or program. Purchasing happens in, many different departments, even those that you don't think of as traditionally being those that have a spend. But if you're printing flyers for an event, or buying airtime on TV, those are still things that you are purchasing and can be intentional about your about that supplier diversity. So I think that it's important for an organization to have a policy, a stated policy that applies to everybody who, has a company credit card or access to purchase orders. To, it runs the gamut, but it should be, everybody's responsibility to help, promote that policy.
Yeah, in reference to affinity bias and the barriers that happens is because it's such an unconscious and biased response that people have as an innate part of who they are. Part of a way to come past that is education. Is educating the masses on what diversity is, and supplier diversity specifically, to bypass your own limitations of the biasness that you have when you are looking to network or purchase from suppliers or bring in suppliers into the fold. So that's about really educating the people. And as Elizabeth said, it's everyone's responsibility. It's not just a department, although there are companies that have created their diversity departments to address that, either one, because it's a criteria that the government is saying, and it's just to kind of fill in those little notches right now. But more importantly, I think education is a key here.
Yeah, I agree that it is with you, both of you, that it is the responsibility of everyone who has a budget, essentially, to examine, okay, who am I using in order to get the goods that I need, whether it's, catering services, to flyers, to banners. I mean, I'm thinking of all the things that I used to purchase at my last organization for work, and no one told me to look into having a supplier diversity policy or program. I just said, I want to make sure that I'm supporting women-owned businesses, family-owned businesses, businesses that support students and children and youth. Those were my priorities. And so I applied that lens to my own purchasing power. And by doing so, now the organization continues to use these companies because they're listed on a list that I left. And so really that's a simple way that we can all participate in a supplier diversity program without it being formally outlined as an objective of the organization. We have another question from Denise. The current court case ruled that racial quotas were unconstitutional, but that race could be considered as one of several factors in admission processes. That's the latest affirmative action case, the SCOTUS ruling. What recommendations would you make so that an organization stays compliant regarding their supplier diversity?
I'm sorry, I was rereading the question.
Sure.
Compliance regarding supplier diversity. That's a great question, Denise. And of course you would give that question. That's a great question. Race could be considered as one of the several factors in the admission process.
So I think that the Supreme Court decision was pretty narrowly focused on college admissions, and we still are protected as private businesses by the Civil Rights Act and other major pieces of legislation that allow us to direct our spend where we want. I think that there has been a chilling effect by from that court case, and it has a lot of organizations worried that things that they've done that are explicitly reference race or gender or some other factor of diversity are going to be under attack next. I don't doubt that the folks pushing that legal agenda and funding these lawsuits are going to start trying. I mean, they already are. They're suing organizations that are providing grants for Black women.
So are you saying that's it? Oh, go ahead. Hi. Oh, thank you for that, Elizabeth. It's just that we probably need to just make sure that as you move on with the supplier diversity, that if it's adjusting a disparity, that organizations are going to have to be real cognizant of that. Because as you stated, the lawsuit is, regarding the educational system, but they went after a Black Women's Fund, and they're going after more. There's a couple, I think 5 lawsuit cases for people that are
Yep.
organizations. Just wanted to
Yeah,
kind
no,
of touch on
it's
that.
America First Legal is the organization pushing all these lawsuits, and having had some success on the college side, they are certainly going to try to push it into the private sector as well.
Thank you.
Leilani, do you have anything?
I'm playing with this in my mind because as the lawsuits for education has been really prevalent, I'm on the other side in reference to lawsuits, in reference to universities, in reference to Black women specifically, and the disparities in that. It's why I'm pausing about how I respond to this.
Black women, Denise.
I think that organizations have to keep a matrix of the ongoings of the political gamut that is happening in cases, and making sure whatever their foundation or platform is that they are creating reaches their own internal goals for diversity, for racial diversity, for women diversity. I think that if they stay good stewards to that in the organization, they will be compliant within the realm of what their infrastructure is, and kind of close the doors about what federal legislation can come after them if they're not following whatever those rules are. And that's kind of vague, but I'm still playing around with this in my head about how an organization can stay compliant. And I just think it's about what they do as an internal structure of what they require in their diverse platform, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Evans and Elizabeth for their time today, and thank everyone on the call. Definitely been a worthwhile 55 minutes learning about supplier diversity. And I want to also make a plug for our next monthly webinar or live event with Mary T. McDowell, who is a CEO, board chair, and really a transformer of organizations in the tech sector. She will be here to speak about women on boards, driving sustainable and responsible business practices. In thinking about this topic, we wanted to move beyond the whole glass ceiling, breaking the glass ceiling trope, to really, how women on boards help to drive business imperatives forward. So we hope that you will join us for that. And if you don't already, please follow us on all our channels. We are prevalent on LinkedIn, our YouTube, not Twitter. This is an old PowerPoint, so sorry, we're going to be taking that off. But you can definitely find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. So thank you, everyone. We're really happy to have had you here today.